Welcome to a new Story Saturday, TikTakers, where we'll be discovering the true and darker version you never knew about classic tales. In these videos, you will notice there is a name we mention very frequently, the Grimm brothers. They were two German researchers from the 19th century who dedicated themselves to compiling fables in their most popular versions, the ones told from parents to their children. Thanks to their efforts, we've learned about the somber origins of popular legends such as Rapunzel, Hansel and Gretel, Cinderella, Red Riding Hood, and Snow White. And today, we bring you another one of their tales. It's a lesser-known one, but it's just as sinister. The story of the damsel with no hands. Once upon a time, there was a miller for whom everything went wrong and who became very poor. Then one day in the forest, he bumped into a strange elder who offered him great riches in exchange for whatever was behind his mill. Thinking he was referring just to the backyard with his apple tree, he accepted. With a mocking smile, the elder said that in 3 years he would come back to get what was his. When the miller went back home, he realized he'd just made a horrible mistake. Behind the mill was his daughter, cleaning the backyard. He had been deceived by the devil himself. During those 3 years, the girl stayed clean and devoted herself to God, so when the devil came for her, he couldn't take her. He then ordered the miller to hide the water so the girl couldn't clean herself. However, she spent the night crying over her hands, which stayed very clean, and once more the devil couldn't take her with him. The devil then ordered the miller to cut her hands or he would take his soul. The fearful man cowardly obeyed, but the girl, who still remained obedient, spent the night crying over her stumps, which stayed very clean thanks to her tears. The devil gave up, defeated, and the young girl abandoned her home. She couldn't keep living with her father after what he had done, and she went away, looking for someone more compassionate. After a lot of walking, she arrived at the king's garden, where the trees were brimming with fruits. Very hungry, she tried to reach one of them, but she couldn't, and thus asked for God's help. An angel then came down from the heavens to help her, and she managed to eat a few pears. The next day, the king, who had counted all of his fruits before, went to visit his garden and realized that he was missing a few pears. He learned about the girl from the gardener, who witnessed the whole scene, and thus the king decided to wait for her return that night. The king then introduced himself to her to learn her story. Touched by everything that happened and completely charmed by her beauty, he made her his wife and ordered his servants to build her a couple of silver hands. She soon became pregnant, but the king had to go fight in a war, so he left her under the care of his own mother. When the baby was born, they sent the king a letter with the news. However, the messenger fell asleep on his way, and the devil, still resentful, took advantage of that to change the letter for one that said that the girl had given birth to a monster. But even then, the king simply responded by asking her mother to take care of his wife until his return. However, the devil intervened again and changed that letter for another one with an order to kill the baby and the damsel, and to cut out and keep their tongues and eyes as proof. The king's mother, devastated, was incapable of committing such an atrocity. She told the damsel to run far away with her son, and used the tongues and eyes of deer to hopefully deceive the king. The young damsel also cries to ask for God's help again. The same angel as before came back and guided her to a cabin in the middle of the forest, where he took care of her, allowing her to raise her son for 17 years. The thankfulness and humbleness of the damsel really touched God, who decided to restore her original hands. When the war was over, the king finally came back to his palace. The devil's trick was discovered, and the devastated king set himself to search the entire world without stopping until finding his wife and son. He spent 7 years going from one place to the other until one day he found the cabin and the angel. The angel offered the king food and drink, but he only asked to let him rest there and went to sleep. The damsel was elated when she recognized her husband and explained to her son who he was. However, the child reacted with anger. He thought he didn't have a father, only God, as said in the Lord's Prayer. With the commotion, the king woke up, but couldn't recognize his wife since now she had hands again. The angel then showed him the silver hands she had kept, and the monarch saw the truth. Brimming with joy, they all went back to the palace, where they celebrated a second wedding and lived happily ever after. What do you think, TikTakers? This story has a happy ending, although the story is pretty dark. And as you know, many tales have a moral at the end. What do you think is the moral of this story? Share it with us in the comments if you figured it out. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!